Hello and welcome to India Business Hour. I'm Ashmit Kumar and here are the headlines we're tracking this evening. SEBI bars American trading firm Jane Street from Indian capital markets alleging market manipulation. Interim order seeks to impound gains of more than 4,800 crore rupees, the largest asset seizure by SEBI till date. Jane Street disputes the findings and says it will engage with the regulator. President Trump says the US will start sending letters to countries today specifying what tariff rates will be imposed on them, floats potential tariffs in a wide range of 10% to 70% ahead of the July 9th deadline.
कि भारत कभी कोई ट्रेड डील डेडलाइन या समय सीमा के आधार पर कभी नहीं करते.
As India's trade delegation returns from the US, Commerce Minister PiyushGoyal says India never negotiates trade deals with a deadline. Sources say differences remain over agri and dairy sectors, but remain hopeful of a mini deal being inked. Separately, India tells the World Trade Organization it will retaliate against the US tariffs on automobile imports levied in March of this year. Reliance Retail moves the company law tribunal for an internal restructuring, seeks to house the FMCG business under new Reliance Consumer Products, which will be directly under Reliance Industries. The move could set the stage for an IPO of the retail business. With a 14,600 crore rupee bid, Dalmia Bharat emerges as the highest bidder for debt-ridden JP Associates, followed by Vedanta and Adani. Most bids are conditional offers and hinge on the Sports City land dispute being resolved. State governments raised the alarm over input tax credit frauds that have turned into over 2 lakh crore rupees. Called for an urgent corrective measure at the Group of Ministers meeting on GST revenue analysis. US lawmakers passed President Trump's sweeping spending and tax bill, handing him the first major legislative victory in his second term. Democrats call it a dark day for the country. Estimates say that the bill will add over $3 trillion to the US national debt. India is always top of the list and presents a huge opportunity, says the Deutsche Bank's global CEO, Christian Sewing. The bank has recently pumped in $800 million into India. That's an exclusive. More than 60 people are dead as torrential rains and cloudbursts wreak havoc in Himachal Pradesh over the last 2 weeks. The state estimates property damage at over 400 crore rupees. World chess champion Gukesh beats world number 1 Magnus Carlsen once again. Chess legend Garry Kasparov says questions can now be raised about Magnus Carlsen's domination of the sport. Well, let's begin with a look at the day's trading action. The Sensex and the Nifty recovered in the last hour of trade and ended the day with marginal cuts. Nifty held on to the 25,400 mark, and this was largely supported by IT stocks and ICICI Bank. For the week, the market snapped its 2-week gaining streak, with Nifty and Sensex falling 1% each. Mid-caps, meanwhile, outperformed the benchmarks, also gaining nearly 0.5% this week. Well, speaking of the markets, the market regulator SEBI has imposed an interim ban on US-based trading firm Jane Street Group and its related entities from accessing the securities market here in India. The entities will be prohibited from buying, selling, or otherwise dealing in securities directly or indirectly, alleging market manipulation. SEBI has also impounded unlawful gains of over 4,800 crore rupees from the company. Jane Street says it disputes these findings and will further engage with the regulator. Hormaz Fatakia, my colleague, is joining us now with more details. Hormaz, take us through this interim order that has been passed by the market regulator SEBI.
What is a Friday if it is not crazy? And the SEBI order on Jane Street has ensured that for all of us today. The market regulator has banned Jane Street and its group entities from accessing the capital markets in its interim order that was uploaded last evening on its website. Now, as per this order, Jane Street made unlawful gains to the tune of 4,843 crore rupees through trades between August of 2023 and May of 2025. This entire amount will will now be impounded, the largest in India's capital market history. SEBI has ordered that this impounded sum will have to be deposited in an escrow account which can be opened in any scheduled commercial bank, and that no debit will be made without prior permission from the market regulator. Now, Jane Street has been given 3 months to square off or close any of their existing positions, or until the expiry of such positions, whichever happens earlier. Now, this matter goes back to July of last year, when SEBI, the market regulator, had asked the National Stock Exchange, or NSE, to examine the trading activities of Jane Street to ascertain any market abuse. The report for this was submitted by the exchange in November of last year. Now, a month later, SEBI discovered that certain entities were running the largest risks in cash equivalent terms, mostly on expiry day. Now, cash equivalent in F&O terminology is liquid instruments that is easily convertible to cash, which can then be used as collateral to trade. Now, in February of this year, SEBI found prima facie that Jane Street was engaged in activities which were in violation of the regulator's PFUTP, or Prevention of Fraudulent and Unfair Trade Practices regulations. As a result, SEBI asked the NSE to send Jane Street a letter of caution to dissuade them from taking any positions that could be manipulative in nature. However, the regulator found in May this year that Jane Street was in complete disregard of the caution letter and still running large cash equivalent positions, which was not only a violation of their regulations but also their own undertakings that Jane Street had given to the regulator. And it is this what led to the issue of the order last evening. That's not all. Last year, SEBI had put out a study stating that out of 9 out of every 10 retail traders lose money in the F&O space. How much did Jane Street earn? Not 1, not 2, but 36,500 crore rupees between January of 2023 and March of 2025. But what is Jane Street? Now, a global proprietary trading firm, 2,600 employees across the US, Europe and Asia, uses algorithms to identify trading opportunities in the market, and it's trading in over 45 countries. Now, does this order bring us to the end of this issue? Well, not yet, because Jane Street has contested the findings of the SEBI interim order and will be reaching out to the regulator regarding this. So it's only part 1 that has come to an end. We'll await to see more as the events unfold.
Right, Hurmaz, thanks a lot for that. This could very well just be chapter 1 of this story. But sticking to that story, how exactly did Jane Street manipulate the markets according to SEBI? Well, Anuj Singhal is joining us with a quick wrap of the modus operandi.
In a nutshell, what was happening, especially on the Bank Nifty, while the other order on Nifty and Sensex may also come. For example, on Bank Nifty, and we always say that Bank Nifty is very lopsided index. Why was this more prevalent on Bank Nifty compared to Nifty and Sensex? Because on Bank Nifty, you have 2 stocks, HDFC Bank and ICICI Bank, which primarily account for almost half of the index. So, you have one HDFC Bank which moves 1%. Now, you move HDFC Bank 1%. Suppose you sell a lot of HDFC Bank, but before that you bought put options of Bank Nifty, and that HDFC Bank falls by 1%, but that put option from 100 rupees becomes 400 rupees. So that's a 4x return, and that is where obviously when HDFC Bank falls all of a sudden, some funds will come and buy HDFC Bank, and the price will eventually go back to the equilibrium, and that's what was happening. Even if you look at yesterday's price move, look at what happened intraday in a lot of stocks. And that is where you will square off these positions and make huge money. So if you see the table, in index options, they made 43,289 crore, but they lost 7,680 crores in futures, because that is where, you ended up losing the trade. The same would happen on the other way around. I mean, if you're buying call option and, you're doing that. So eventually that, in a nutshell, is what was happening.
Well, Zerodha CEO Nitin Kamath has said that if SEBI's allegations are true, Jane Street engaged in blatant market manipulation. He also added that F&O volumes are likely to drop, since trading firms like Jane Street account for 50% of options trading volumes. The fears were visible on the Lal Street today, with shares of brokerages like Nuvama Wealth, Angel One and stock exchanges like BSE seeing sharp cuts. Here are some legal experts with what they make of this SEBI order.
I think this is an appropriate way in which a regulator like SEBI must make sure that the integrity of the markets is protected. And while we understand the whole idea of why there should be index options and futures and option trading and all of that, I think it has to be done under constraint.
Well, the signal that it sends is that however big you may be, you're not above the law. Based on facts, they have come to a conclusion that there has been a gain which is not justified in law, and therefore they have taken the action which they have done. So let's see whether the factual position is justifiable. And as I said, the only solution now for the Jane Street Group is to go to the appellate tribunal and prove their case before them.
Now, US President Donald Trump has announced that his administration will start sending the tariff letters to countries starting today. The letters will inform these countries what tariff rates they will face. Speaking to reporters before boarding Air Force One, Trump said that these countries will be expected to start paying tariffs from the 1st of August and that the tariffs will be ranging in value from 10% to 70%. He also added that negotiating individual trade deals with over 170 countries is a complex process. This comes at a time where India and the United States are inching closer to sign a mini trade deal next week.
So we're going to start sending letters out to various countries starting tomorrow. We'll probably have 10 or 12 go out tomorrow. And over the next few days, I think by the 9th, they'll be fully covered. And they'll range in value from maybe 60 or 70% tariffs to 10 and 20% tariffs. But they're going to be starting to go out sometime tomorrow. We've done the final form, and it's basically going to explain what the countries are going to be paying in tariffs.
Well, meanwhile, India's trade delegation has returned from the United States. Sources tell us that differences remain over agri and dairy sectors, but remain hopeful of a mini deal before July 9th deadline. Commerce Minister PiyushGoyal says that India never negotiates trade deals with a deadline. Separately, India tells the World Trade Organization it will retaliate against US tariffs on automobile imports levied in March of this year. Here is Commerce Minister PiyushGoyal speaking at an event earlier this evening.
नेशनल इंटरेस्ट विल ऑलवेज बी सुप्रीम. वो ध्यान में रखते हुए अच्छा अगर डील बनती है तो भारत तो विकसित देशों के साथ डील करने के लिए कभी भी तैयार है. भारत कभी कोई ट्रेड डील डेडलाइन या समय सीमा के आधार पर कभी नहीं करते. जब डील अच्छी बन जाए, पूरी तरीके से पक जाए और देश हित में हो, तब उसको हम स्वीकार करें. अभी तो कोई प्लान नहीं है. अब तो जल्दी पार्लियामेंट सेशन आने वाला है.
India's negotiating team may have returned from the United States, but talks are still continuing for an interim trade deal between both the countries. Also, both the countries remain engaged in talks. However, what has been indicated so far by India that no deal would be signed in haste, and any deal, whenever it is signed, would be only in national interest. Now, talks are still taking place on issues pertaining to the agriculture and automobile sector. It remains to be seen how early these issues are going to be ironed out, even as both the sides remain engaged in talks. All possibilities remain on the table for now. Also, India is seeking a sustained preference in several sectors as far as labor-intensive exports from India are concerned, particularly in areas like leather and textiles. Also, the talks are at a final stage. Also, government sources have indicated that the US is not exempting anyone on steel, and even India has imposed a safeguard duty as far as steel imports are concerned, like any other country, to protect their domestic industry. Though government sources also pointed out that the cost of manufacturing is already high in the United States, and despite a high duty for steel products into the United States, still imports may keep coming into the United States. It remains to be seen how early the talks are going to conclude between both the sides and what are going to be the modalities of the interim deal.
Reliance has moved NCLT to house the FMCG business under one roof, directly under Reliance Industries. Currently, the FMCG business is under two subsidiaries of Reliance Retail Ventures. The restructuring scheme proposes to move it to an entity called New Reliance Consumer Products. Reliance has argued that FMCG is a large business and distinct from retail. It has also submitted in the NCLT that it requires large capital and feels the need to attract a different set of investors. NCLT for now has asked these companies to secure necessary approvals from shareholders and creditors. NCLT has also directed them to inform the government and tax authorities. Now, the race to acquire debt-ridden Jaiprakash Associates continues to gather steam. Sources have told CNBC TV18 that Dalmia Bharat is the highest bidder with 14,600 crore rupees. However, most bids are conditional in nature. Ritu Singh joining us now with more details. Ritu, tell us who's bidding how much and what these conditions are.
Well, some of India's biggest corporate houses, including Adani, Vedanta, Dalmia, Bharat, have submitted offers to acquire Jaiprakash Associates, but there is a major catch. Most of these bids hinge on the outcome of a land dispute that is currently pending in the Supreme Court. Now, in absolute terms, and remember the bid includes many components, we understand it is Dalmia Bharat which has placed the highest offer of more than 14,600 crore rupees. But if JP's Sports City land dispute in Noida is not resolved, they could cut their offer by around 2,000 crores or even more. Our sources also indicate Vedanta Group has offered about 13,600 crore rupees. But again, if the land issue is not cleared, they may withdraw their offer altogether. Then you have Adani Group's offer at about 12,250 crore rupees. It also includes NCDs that are payable over more than 4 years. And while their bid is also conditional, our sources indicate Adani's offer may stand irrespective of the land dispute outcome. Then you have Naveen Jindal's Jindal Power, which has bid 10,300 crores, also contingent on the land dispute, and PNC Infratech is the lowest bidder at 9,500 crore rupees. Now, here is the core issue to remind our viewers. Around 1,000 hectares of land under JP's Sports City project was cancelled earlier by YEDA, and that was upheld by the Allahabad High Court, but JP's resolution professional has moved the Supreme Court to challenge it, where the case is currently pending. Now, these are just the first round of bids, remember, so there will be negotiations and even possible revisions to the offers that follow, so we'll have to see who comes out on top, but the process itself is far from over.
Well, staying with court action, Supreme Court has refused to grant interim relief to HDFC Bank CEO Shashidhar Jagdishan in the Leelavati Medical Trust case. While hearing a plea filed by the CEO, the court said that it cannot get into the merits at this stage and has directed him to wait for the next hearing of the dispute at the Bombay High Court. However, the court also said that Jagdishan's plea has been listed 4 times in the Bombay High Court without a hearing, and that it trusts that the plea will be taken up in the upcoming hearing, which is scheduled for the 14th of July. Former SpiceJet promoter Kalanidhi Maran has moved the Supreme Court, challenging Delhi High Court's order dismissing his claim for damages worth 1,300 crore rupees. Maran is seeking damages from current promoters of SpiceJet, and this battle has been going on since 2015. The claim had previously been rejected by the Arbitral Tribunal and Delhi High Court on May 23rd. The Delhi High Court dismissed Cal Airways' plea by calling it a calculated gamble. A hearing has been scheduled for the 18th of July at the Apex Court. The Petroleum and Natural Gas Regulatory Board has approved the second amendment to the natural gas pipeline tariff regulations. The new regulations will introduce a set of changes to simplify tariffs and improve access to natural gas across the country. The norms also aim at reducing the number of unified tariff zones from 3 to 2. State governments have raised the red flag on a 2 lakh crore rupee input tax credit fraud at a GST meeting. Group of ministers on revenue analysis chaired by Goa Chief Minister Pramod Sawant discussed tax evasion concerns and shared action plans. Punjab's Finance Minister called the scale of the fraud as massive and called for corrective measures.
देखिए मीटिंग में मोटा मोटा निकल के आया कि लगभग 2 लाख करोड़ का एनुअली जी आईटीसी का फ्रॉड होता है, तो उसको रोकने के लिए डिफरेंट स्टेटों ने अपना अपना व्यू पॉइंट दिया। पंजाब ने भी अपना व्यू पॉइंट रखा कि हम इसको कैसे रोक सकते हैं। तो उसके लिए हमारे जो जीएम के चेयरमैन है गोवा के मुख्यमंत्री, उन्होंने सभी कुछ नोट किया। तो आने वाली सेकंड मीटिंग होगी। सेकंड मीटिंग से पहले सभी ऑफिसर की मीटिंग होगी। जितना डाटा जो है, जो स्टेट का डाटा है, सेक्टर वाइज जो कलेक्ट किया है कि गुड्स में कितना आता है, सर्विस सेक्टर में कितना आता है, फूड सेक्टर में कितना आता है, वो सभी का एनालिसिस करने के बाद वो अपनी रिपोर्ट प्रेजेंट करेंगे, तो उसके बाद हम चर्चा करेंगे।
Labour Secretary Vandana Gurnani has said that only manufacturing sector will be eligible for incentives under the new employment scheme for 4 years. Speaking to CNBC TV 18, she added that the incentives under the scheme will be limited to 2 years for other sectors. She also clarified that there is no per month or per annum target for companies to avail this scheme.
In terms of sectors, I would say it is a very broad-based scheme. It is applicable to all sectors. There is, I would say, an additional incentive, a longer incentive for the manufacturing sector to give a special boost to that particular sector. So all sectors would be eligible for incentive for 2 years. after the employment is generated. However, manufacturing sector would have an additional 2 years. It would be eligible for incentives for 4 years. Any company which has less than 50 employees has to hire 2 additional employees. So, over the baseline of employment that they currently have, just 2 more people hired makes them eligible for the incentive. And if they hire 10 people, 15 people, 100 people, they get incentive for all of them. Similarly, for companies which have more than 50 employees, they have to hire 5 additional employees. So there is no such per month or per annum target that is there.
Coming up on India Business Hour, India is always top of the list and presents a huge opportunity, says the Deutsche Bank's global CEO, Christian Sewing. More on that, exclusive conversation in just a bit. And you can also catch all CNBC TV 18's news and updates on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, X, and Jio Hotstar. US lawmakers have passed President Trump's sweeping spending and tax bill, handing him a first major legislative victory in the second term. Democrats have called it a dark day for the country. The procedural rule voting saw 1 Republican representative joining Democrats in opposition. The legislation will extend tax cuts President Trump signed into law in 2017. The bill is estimated to add more than $3 trillion to the U.S. national debt. And staying with Donald Trump, the U.S. president held a phone call with Russian President Putin last night. Speaking to reporters today, Trump said that he made no progress towards a potential ceasefire during the call, adding that he was not happy with what was happening in Ukraine. He added that both the leaders spoke about many topics, including Iran. Meanwhile, the Kremlin said that both the leaders held a frank and substantive conversation. Israeli forces have intensified their attacks in Gaza, killing more than 100 Palestinians, out of which 51 were waiting for aid. Hamas has said that consultations have begun on a latest proposal for a temporary 60-day ceasefire in Gaza and that the group will submit its response to the mediators. Reports have said that Hamas is seeking guarantees that the ceasefire proposal would lead to the war's end. External Affairs Minister S. Jaiprakash will be commencing his 3-day visit to China from the 13th of July. As per News 18, this will be the minister's first visit to China after both nations decided on patrolling agreement last October. He will be visiting Beijing for a couple of meetings, after which he will attend the SCO Foreign Ministers meeting. Torrential rains and flash floods have killed more than 60 people in Himachal Pradesh. Reports have said that rains caused property damage of more than 400 crore rupees. Rescue and relief operations are currently underway. The Met Department has issued a yellow alert for heavy rainfall at some places in the state today as well as tomorrow. Deutsche Bank CEO Christian Sewing has said that India is always top of the list and presents a huge opportunity. Speaking to CNBC TV 18, Sewing added that India is also a strong source of innovation and technology for the world. The bank has recently pumped in $800 million into India.
Let's talk about why you're here in India and how India is playing itself out in this era of volatility. You've just met with India's Commerce Minister PiyushGoyal. What's the read on India at this point in time?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure being here. It's a pleasure being in this country. To be honest, that meeting was very positive, but the overall spirit in this country is outright positive. I've been here now for 3 days, and I have to say I'm amazed by the steam, by the drive, by the passion, you know, it's an economy which is obviously outright growing. It's actually with whomever you talk, the story is growth. And it is also coming, obviously, from Germany, being one of the leading European banks, looking at our clients. Our clients are actually looking to India out of the lens of this is an opportunity. A lot of global clients, a lot of multinationals, but also family-owned companies are in the process of reorganizing their supply chains, their production chains, and India is always top on the list. And that is, from a Deutsche Bank point of view, a huge opportunity for us. We have been here for 45 years. We have 23,000 people. We are growing immensely. We just put $800 million of capital into India. So we want to grow and our clients want to grow. So it's a very positive story. So I'm excited.
Well, let me build on that excitement that you just gave us a snapshot into. When you talk to your clients and you say that they're looking at opportunities in India, what are the opportunities specifically that they've been able to identify and that they want to zero in on?
The nice thing is it varies. Look, first of all, it's a market with 1.4 billion people. Number two, it's a market with such young demographic. You can see in which direction it goes. So simply from a market's point of view, it's an opportunity, in particular for a lot of European and German export-oriented companies. And there is lots to grow in this regard. Number two, the skill set which India is offering for all kind of industries is superior to a lot of other countries. And let me argue it from a financial point of view, financial services point of view. We have overall 90,000 people in Deutsche Bank, 23,000 are in India. Now, approximately 19,000 people are actually in our innovation, risk management, finance, operations teams. They are, so to say, the backbone of Deutsche Bank as a group. And the technology, innovation and skills we get are core for the overall bank. And therefore, a lot of other corporates are also looking at India not only as a huge market, but also as a source of innovation, technology. And hence, it's actually your strength that it's very much broad-based. And therefore, I'm very positive on the development.
Now, world chess champion Gukesh has beaten world number 1 Magnus Carlsen once again. Chess legend Garry Kasparov has now said that questions can now be raised about Magnus Carlsen's domination of the sport. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Business Hour. Thank you so much for watching. News and updates will continue right here on CNBC TV 18.